have had this cactus arrangement for about 7 years, and it's finally time to repot some of it and take out what's dying and give each of these their own individual home. This big copper king cactus, I think, is mostly dead. There are definitely some spots on it that are growing, but a lot of this stuff in here is dried out, and I think it could be from rot. There's a chance that it is actually just dried out, but we're gonna pull it apart and see. And then I love this little paper spine cactus. It's such a weird one, and I'm excited to have it showcased on its own. And I'm gonna go ahead and pot these other two on their own as well. I don't have a ton of photos of this arrangement, but I do have a couple. And you can see at one point in time, there was actually a little gymnocalycium in here, and this looked a lot better. This is a crested copper king. As will happen with crested succulents, it started putting off a bunch of new individual growth, just little one-off strands. So as I pull this apart, you'll see the crested pieces, and you'll also see these individual little cactus as well. Now, if we get in here nice and close, as I just pull this off, I don't know if you can hear that or see that, but this is totally dried out. So I'm gonna throw all of these away because they're just dried. What I'm looking for though is a piece like this one where there's green in the center, which means it is still alive and growing. This piece kind of looks in between. I've got some green at the end, but then I've got some pink and white down here at the bottom. You can see this crested ridge right along here, and it has all these babies growing off of it. They are all dead and dried out, and that definitely looks like rot to me. Yeah, check that out. Ugh. It is really gross and really cool all at the same time. But that is one rotted cactus. Now, despite the rotting, there's actually some pieces that are still good up here. That is all being thrown out. This, however, is partially alive and partially dead and dried out. Oh, it's because they're not connected. Yep, that would do it. So there's the little dead piece right here, and then the alive piece. I do like the shape of this one. It's kind of like it's waving. Little hand. And then it's got a little baby coming off the edge here. So this one's kind of crested, but then it has the individual little pups off the top there. Ooh, can you hear that crunch? This is all dried up, dead. More dead, dried up cactus. I don't see anything on here that's alive. There are some remnants of a once healthy root system. It actually looks like the roots are good, so it must have just rotted up at the top more. All right, we're gonna pull out the little paper spine cactus. Not a lot of roots going on for this paper spine cactus, so I think potting it up on its own and watering a little bit more frequently and fertilizing, because these have not been fertilized very often, if ever. So a little more fertilizer and it should start growing and hopefully put off some new little offsets of its own. Now this guy has some happy roots, but the rest of him is not super happy. Definitely needs some fertilizer because it should be a darker green like that new growth on top. This guy actually has some pretty good roots in there too. They haven't been watered in a very, very, very long time. Like 60 days, maybe 30 days, I'm not sure. But again, the top is a nice purple color. It's getting plenty of light, but down here a little bit yellowish, and I'm pretty positive that's due to lack of fertilizer. I don't actually like these little pieces very much. I don't want to try and keep them alive, so I'm going to toss them. I really like the little hand at the top of this, but I don't want to keep this whole piece. So I'm going to just chop it off right here, let it dry, and then stick it in some soil and help it root. So I would say that's a pretty healthy cactus inside from what I have seen. I'm gonna let that dry out or scab over, and then I will pot it up with some gritty mix and water it and fertilize it. Now, you may have noticed that I have not used gloves this whole time. If I'm planting something like an opuntia, like a bunny ears opuntia, where it has really, really fine little stickers that are going to get in my fingers, I will use gloves for that. But I typically try to just use tongs, tweezers, and then a rag if something is bigger. Sometimes I'll use paper, but I feel like I actually have a better grip on things that way rather than using gloves. But totally a personal preference, and you do whatever works best for you. So we've got this little guy potted up. I'm going to move on to the next one. Cactus number 2. And cactus number 3. Now that this one is dried out, I'm going to go ahead and stick it in some soil. And there we have cactus number 4. So after 7 years, there's maybe not a lot to show for these cactus, but they've been very low maintenance and I still have them. They're still growing. And I am excited to see how they continue to grow now that I know I need to fertilize a lot more often. And I'm hopeful that being potted individually will also allow them to get the water that they need and have a better watering schedule or watering frequency.